in the 630 66th Street Boardroom for our official board meeting of Thursday, February 27th, 2025. We have members of the board, we have a brief work session here. We're going to go through the budget and then quickly go through the agenda review, which hasn't changed much. And then board members, I'm going to ask for an executive session around 6 o'clock to talk about matters that I will announce prior to asking for your vote for an executive session. So having said that, what I'd like to do is ask Ms. Jacqueline, Ms. Holliday to come to the podium, and I'd like to take you through the most recent iteration of the 25-26 school budget, and it has but just a few changes. After we go through this very smartly, I'm just going to ask Becky to detail for you the property tax report card. So, Julie, if you help me if I need any help. But as you know, we've been going through this. When you look at the revenue side and you see this week's color is orange. You know, I'm not good with colors, but this week's color is orange. And orange indicates a change from last week. Okay, so that orange is indicating a change. Now, on the revenue side, our hardware, textbook, software number, it's a negative, but it decreased by about $12,000, so that's a good thing. And our interest and tax collection actually went up, so that's a good thing. So on the revenue side, we picked up through our work about $50,000 by shoring up the hardware, textbook, software, the interest, and the tax collection. So we added about $50,000 to the budget on that side. Ray, if you'd scan down, 50. I'm sorry, Jimmy, you're right. About $60,000. How did we do it? We increased the tax collection number 38,000. We increased the interest on our interest about 10,000, and we decreased the hardware, software, textbook line 12,000. So we're up about 60,000 on the revenue side, and that's why those are indicated in orange. If you go to the assumption side, we have more ability to move people into grants. I've been speaking about the federal government and our excess money in the federal grant side. We were able to comfortably put $300,000 more of people onto the grants, which helps. We do have one grant that is expiring, and we had half a salary in that, so we have to count that against the general fund budget. We are doing so much more nursing for our children, so much more nursing beyond the school day. And we noticed in our lines this year, the nursing line went up, so we added to that line to prepare and make sure that all of the specialized nursing, and the nursing isn't just the school day, the nursing is for after-school activities, sporting events, etc. We wanted to put some money in there to really round that out to be more accurate. And we've shored up our out-of-district tuitions and our BOCES money. So that is a little bit tighter. When you scroll down, then I'll ask Julie if there's anything that she wants to add here. We're still at about a growth of 3.9% budget to budget. We've grown 3.9% from year to year. I don't really count the 5.96 growth because that's revenue that comes into us from the capital projects that had we not had a capital project, that growth wouldn't be there. And you can see that before we use any reserves or fund balance, the gap is 4.3 million. Last week we told you that we need to use about $915,000. Was it $915,000 of the reserve for debt? That is on a schedule, and we had to use it. So when you subtract the 913, it leaves us with a gap on February 27th of about $3.4 million, which, if you've been here for a number of years, at this meeting, $3.4 million is not, it's not anything that's going to be insurmountable. It's not anything that I want anybody to worry about. We will work now on bringing you strategies to reduce the $3.4 million. I want to reiterate two things. This is keeping all of our FTEs, not having one reduction, having all the programs our kids need, but accounting for costs, raises, health insurance, so on and so forth. We also have added to our consideration line judgment and claims. You know, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Earl has told us that the major maintenance need is to upgrade 2 salt trucks, and he has an estimate there of $220. What we did in this budget is, and Rick began conversations and surveying last night, we separated the elementary summer school from the Camp Wolverine. Elementary summer school is for our general summer school that we have 3 or 4 weeks that used to be paid for by ARP funds. Camp Wolverine are for our exceptional children. I am leaning toward putting that back into the budget. When you see it again, the Camp Wolverine, I'm really feeling that that's something that we need to do for our exceptional children. But I'm going to wait on the ELP until I get a recommendation stronger from Rick as to how that looks. But I'm foreshadowing the fact that I would like to put the Camp Wolverine back in for our exceptional children. So that will obviously increase the gap. When you look below it, you see all of your reserves. The grant carryover, remember, those are federal monies, so I want to keep that grant carryover at a low rate for obvious national reasons. And I want to make one other comment, Ray, if you could scroll back, because I was reading about a school district in New York, and I think this school district, which I won't name, is being a little premature. But what they're doing, I do think it's immature, but what I want to start contemplating is they are starting to take some of their federal grant people and bleeding them back into the general fund budget as a result of possible reductions from the federal government. I personally think it's a little premature to do that because we don't know what's going to happen. But if you recall, that's what you did with your ARP money. Remember, we brought that back in, and when the ARP money ran out, we didn't have to lay anybody off or cut programs because we slowly brought people back in, and then when the money was gone, we had it all accounted for. I was reading about a district downstate that's doing that in this budget. I think it's premature, but it has resonated in my mind. I don't think I'm going to recommend that this year, but I want to watch that closely. Finally, before I let Julie conclude this part, if you'd scroll back up, this is where Becky's going to take over. There is a huge misnomer or misunderstanding, I believe, about the property tax cap. Everyone says you can only raise it 2%. Maybe some of you listening have heard this. It's a New York State. That's really an inaccurate statement. There's a formula that Becky will show you. And in the formula for us this year, if you wanted to, you could raise the tax cap 5.5%. You could do that. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm not going to recommend that at all. But it went away, Ray. You could raise it this year without overriding it and needing a supermajority, 5.5%. What would it get you? Every 1% that you raise taxes, you would generate $258,290. So if you raise the tax rate 5.5%, you'd get $1,421,421. If you raised it 1%, you'd get $258,290. I'm not suggesting that. I just want to put that out there as a matter of explanation course for you as to what you could or couldn't do as a way of increasing your ability to raise revenue. I don't believe we need to do that. That will be for a later discussion. Julie, is there anything that you would add to this budget?
No.
Come on, Julie.
No, really nothing. It was excellent.
Okay. Do the board members have any questions?
I do, Ms. Lori. The Camp Marine, or the camp for the handicapped children, wasn't that funded with a endowment or anything?
7 years ago, we had a $5,000 Riva Mir endowment for $5,000. It has since gone away. What we had done in the past 3 or 4 years is we had funded it with our American Rescue Funds. So we had funded general fund, American Rescue Funds, and now we have neither of those. So the feeling that I have is we should put that back in the general fund and include it on the expense side. Other questions? I'd like you to turn the page, Ray. Thank you. And I'd like Becky to step up. We also have to give the public the property tax report card. This, Becky, I believe this is this comes in our newsletter in April.
The property tax report card does. This is only going to the state controller's office on March 1st.
Okay.
And it is telling this controller we have to let them know if we plan to override the tax cap or where we are with the tax cap.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't want to make an assumption for the board, but I don't believe there's any flavor for overriding the tax cap. I don't believe we need to do that. I don't think we need to raise the tax levy in Niagara Falls another nickel. I believe you have done a miraculous job of keeping the levy at $25,800,000 for the time that I've been here. Now the distribution of that changes, but I'm not looking to override the tax cap. The last thing I'll say before I interrupt Becky 100 times is we only need a simple majority this year of 50% plus one voter. You remember last year, because it was negative, we needed 60%. Now we just need, because it's in the positive, we need a 50% majority. Would you like to just briefly take them through this, Becky?
Sure, and the reason for the change from year to year really goes to our debt service payments. This year, well, this past year, we did a bond anticipation note to pay for a BOFA project that we're in the middle of. Now we have to pay that interest back in July. That interest is $1.3 million. So what that is doing is increasing the general fund share of our debt. Because normally our aid ratio is so high that we don't have that type of exception to put into the tax cap calculation. So because of that, we could raise taxes the $1.4 million this year with just a single majority.
Right. Not recommending it, but that's what you can do. And if you look, I was at a BOCES meeting today, and we went around the room and talked about what is your tax cap limit. It goes from Niagara Wheatfield, who is at 0.67, to Niagara Falls, who is at 0.55. Because of the factors in each individual school district, there's a different formula. And then there are other districts that are about 2.8, and they're going to vote, their boards are going to raise taxes to 2.8%, right to the limit. So if you look at just the 13 Orleans Niagara districts, you'll find 13 different tax allocation allotment numbers.
Yep, it all depends on everybody's debt ratio and et cetera.
So for the controller, we are going to send this in tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
We're going to tell the controller that we could go to 5.5%. This is how we've calculated it, and we don't anticipate exceeding the tax cap number in any way, shape, or form for the voters. It's interesting that it's due March 1st when the budget's not due that time, but we want you to know we will be submitting this to the New York State Controller to show that our allowable increase is 5.5%, and we're not going to exceed it or look for a supermajority.
Correct, so that way we only need the simple majority for the election and vote.
Questions on the budget or the tax cap calculation? Again, what you will see on March 13th, and we're really starting to wind down so that you know the process. March 13th, more refined. March 27th, more refined. April 2nd, or April 3rd, I can't remember the dates. Final. April 10th, we're going to ask you to vote for the final budget. So on April 2nd or 3rd, and I'm sorry I don't have the dates memorized, you will see a 0 in the gap. You'll see a 0 in the gap. It will be hopefully everything that we need to add. Hopefully we'll have our insurance rates, our property casualty rates, our foundation aid. If the state passes a budget, as they are required to do by law, April 1st, we will have our foundation aid amount, and we will also have in there how we intend to close about a $3.2 million budget gap. I would anticipate and close with two things. One, you were very, I thought, understanding and willing to use some of our reserves last year to do that. That's the way I'm leaning this year. We are fully funded in our reserves. Don't feel like we can afford to make any reductions or raise the property tax. And as you know, when the year closed and Drescher and Malecki were here, we were able to replenish those reserves and add to them. I feel that the same scenario is going to happen this year. I don't know if that replenishment, however, will be as large. That would be my only caution. I feel that we're going to be able to do what we have to do and replenish back to what we took, but I don't think we're going to be adding as much as we added. That's just my outlook for the future. But ladies, contradict me. Earl does all the time, so contradict me if you like.
No need to.
All right?
Thank you. Any
Thank you very
questions?
much.
Thanks.
Members of the board, we do have a voting meeting at 7 o'clock this evening. None of the resolutions have changed. I think there was a correction, Richard, on one payment amount. It was a slight correction. There was a correction to the payment on one of the short-term contracts. And otherwise, you've had these for 2 weeks. I feel, Mr. President, members of the board, you can take the artificial intelligence policy off the table. I feel that Ray, Maria, and the BOCES Policy Service have done a good job with a first blush look at the artificial intelligence policy. I don't believe this will be the final one. I think you're going to continue to see artificial intelligence policies coming for change frequently at the board level. But I like to be ahead of the curve. We're one of the few districts that does have an artificial intelligence policy. And this one, if I'm correct, Ray and Maria, was taken through your work and the work of the Erie 1 BOCES Policy Service. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was a template of a policy, and then Ray, the technology committee, and all of the folks that he went to made it applicable to our district.
So I'm going to recommend that you take that off the table tonight, vote on it, and then when Ray, Maria, and the technology committee feel it needs to be tweaked, added to, deleted from, he will propose it again and we'll come back with amendments. But I think it's time to get a policy on the table. Maria, any changes that you'd like to speak to with respect to the personnel reports, either certificated or classified?
I do not have to particularly speak to anything. The reports that the board received on Tuesday were updated with asterisks. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you. No, we just sent them to you the way we normally do before the voting meeting with the stars on them.
There is one sad placement on there.
Well, I thought you might like to address that, Mr. Laurie.
I will address that. I'm going to be brief in addressing this. There is a retirement on the...
Classified report.
Thank you. There is a retirement on the classified report that I'm trying not to get choked up. Okay. But we are, and we can make it public before the board meeting. Our good friend and outstanding operations and maintenance director, Mr. Smeal, is retiring. And we're going to regretfully, and I say this, regretfully ask you to approve it. I know there has actually been some board members who were going to vote against that. I hope that passes. We will, I didn't mean that in that way, it just came out. I'm sorry.
No, that's what,
I actually was trying to be sincere for once about you, but I didn't mean that, Earl, I'm sorry. We will have a 4-month farewell tour. It'll be the Dr. J, Dr. J, when he retired from the NBA, they went to every stadium. They gave him a rocking chair. They gave him a basket. I remember watching it when I was a young kid. So for the next 4 months, we'll be doing steam valves 1 week. We'll be bringing in salt another week. But with regret, but certainly tons of appreciation, we're asking you to vote on Earl's retirement this evening. And as I said, I'll leave my commentary there because there'll be a 4-month farewell tour coming up. So congratulations, Earl. Anything else, Maria?
I don't have anything else in this.
Board members, anything else? Yeah.
Do you want to just notify the public a little bit on today's article in the Gazette on the front page where it looks like Niagara Falls is the only one that got a lot of money
For the federal
11
government?
million for the state and federal
No.
aid.
I'm sorry, I didn't read the article. I was at work, my usual 5 a.m. this morning, so I didn't get a chance to read the article. But I saw the headline, it talked about federal funds. Every school district except 16 in the state receive federal funds. These are the wealthy of the wealthiest that don't. The reporter asked me what the impact would be if the federal government were to disband, the federal education department were to disband. And I told them that we have about, as I told you last week, about $11.5–12 million. The biggest chunk of that is Title I, II, III, and IV. We get that based on our poverty and our population. It does have a number of staff in that. I'm hoping that that's not going to come to fruition. Secondarily, we get $2.3 million in IDEA special education funding, hoping that that's not going to come to fruition. Next, we receive $2.3 million of Head Start money. That's how we run our Head Start money, our program, plus some of the district contribution for benefits. And finally, we have about $1 million worth of grants. So I believe that that's what the article referred to. The conjecture is that federal money would go to the states. The concern is how will the state interpret it, and will all of that federal money come as clean as the numbers that I just shared with you? Will it all go there? Will there be an intercept of it? Will it be lessened? We don't know those numbers. We don't know those. But I am reading that it will take an act of Congress to disband that. For everybody listening, the federal money is set through this budget season in the federal budget. We would be talking about the year 26. So I guess my response, and I'm sorry I didn't read the article, is that we're watching it super close. I think the district that's bleeding the people in now is far overreacting. The question was, what's the impact? That's the impact, the negative potential impact. I'm hoping it doesn't happen. We've begun our lobbying efforts with our state officials to make sure that they know how important that is for us. On the positive side, I see that the administrator for the NAEP was let go. I think that's a positive. I'm trying to be political here. I have no regard for the NAEP as a test, and I see our high school principals here who just administered it. I don't have a problem with that going away. And I really hope that with the federal government giving it to the states, a much more growth-minded accountability system could be developed. So that's what I shared with the Gazette. If there are no other questions, I would request respectfully an executive session for two reasons. The first reason is for a personnel matter, which may lead to the appointment or employment of a person or persons. And the second executive session item that will be discussed that is permissible under the forms and motions of executive session is for pending litigation between the Niagara Falls City School District and the child victims cases of which we are litigating currently. Those are the two reasons I would ask for your vote to go into executive session. At the conclusion of executive session, that will be at 6:59, there will be no action taken on either of those two items. Thank you.
Moved by Tony, second by Earl. We'll call the roll for executive session for, sorry, for moved and second, please call the roll.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Bilson? Yes. Mr. Kinsemi? Yes. Mr. Capizzi is not yet with us. Mrs. Dunn? Yes. Mr. McLeod? Yes. Mr. Pareto? Yes. Mr. Velardo? Yes. Mr. Petrosi?
Yes. And we'll have a prayer by Mr. Pareto.
Okay, we promise to listen to children, communicate with children, teach children right from wrong, and become good role models. Spend time with and pay attention to all children. Educate in mind, body, and soul. Work to provide a stable life for children. Pray for and see the good in all children. Vote for children to ensure them a fair opportunity. Speak out for all children and their needs. And we do that together. Amen.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Judy, would you kindly call the roll, please?
Mr. Bass.
Present.
Mr. Bilson.
Here.
Mr. Kinsemi is here. Mr. Capizzi is excused, I assume.
Yes,
Mrs.
Mr.
Dunn. Mr. McLeod. Mr. Pareto.
Here.
Mr. Velardo. Mr. Petrosi.
Here, thank you.
Present.
We'll give Mr. Consemi a moment to get settled. I do not have any letters. I do not have any public speakers on agenda items. Saying that, we'll move on to recommended actions from the superintendent. 401 and 402 we shall take together. Minutes for 25 of January and approval of budget transfer number 7. Motion, please. Rob, and second by Nick. Questions? Call the roll, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, thank you. 404. Yes, sir.
Can we go back to reflections for 1 second?
Go back to where?
Mine. I found this, and a dear friend of ours had given it to me. And I put it on my back burner, and then the last 2 weeks I've been reading it over and over again. And I'd like to read something that a 15-year-old boy wrote from Minnesota. It's called the Lord's Prayer. The Lord's Prayer is not allowed in most U.S. public schools anymore. Now I sit down in my school when praying is against the rule. For the great nation under God finds mention in very odd. If Scripture now the class recites, it violates the Bill of Rights. And any time my head I bow becomes a federal matter now. Our hair can be purple, orange, or green. There's no offense, it's a freedom seen. The law is specific, the law is precise. Prayer spoken aloud or a serious vice. For praying in public halls might offend someone with no faith at all. In silence alone we must meditate. God's name is prohibited by the state. We're allowed to cuss and dress like freaks and pierce our noses, tongues, and cheeks. They've outlawed guns, but first the Bible. To quote God's book makes me liable. And the unwed daddy, our senior king, is inappropriate to teach right from wrong. We're taught that such judgments do not belong. We cannot get our condoms and birth controls. Study witchcraft, vampires, and totem poles. But the 10 Commandments are not allowed. No word of God must reach this crowd. It's scary here, I must confess. But chaos reigns, the school's a mess. So Lord, this silent plea I make. Should I be shot, my soul please take. Thank you. I think that's something we should all think about.
Jimmy, would you make sure Judy gets a copy of that, okay?
I'm sorry?
Judy get a copy of that.
Okay.
Okay? That would be under letters and communications, I guess. Okay. We are at Treasurer's Report, 404, and Budget Status Report, 405, are received and filed. 4.06, Personnel Report, certificated. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Nick. Questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Bilson? Mr. Kinsemi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. McLeod? Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo? Mr. Petrosi?
Yes. Thank you, Judy. 4.07, Personnel Report, classified. Rob? Jimmy? Questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Bilson? Mr. Kinsemi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. McLeod? Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo? Mr. Petrosi?
Before I vote, I would like to just say reluctantly, we will be accepting Mr. Earl Smeal's retirement on this report. Thank you for all your service. Thank you for all you've done, and thank you for all you will do, because you're not going away that fast. We thank you, and I vote yes. 408 and 409 together, reports on Committee on Special Ed. 409 is the committee from the report on preschool special ed. Thank you. Jimmy, Rob, questions? Call the roll, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Judy. 4.10, these are short-term contracts. There are several. I will abbreviate. Number 1 is First Choice Travel. Number 2 is Four Winds Domestic and International Tours. 3 is Fight Night Boxing, and along with 4 is Fight Night Boxing. Number 5 is Reverend Gene Copeland. Number 6 is Judith Deliverance Ministries. 7 is Christ Redemption Tabernacle. 8, Elizabeth Bell. 9, Zuzu Acrobats. 10, the Zuzu Acrobats again. Number 11, African American Storytelling. Number 12, Black History Month performance. 13, Iron Workers Local 9. Number 14, Top Youth Speakers. 15, Lift Enrichment Program. 16, Because I Tried Enterprises. And 17, Over the Falls Tours. Motion by Mr. Velardo, second by Mr. Bass. We have a question, Mr. Bass.
So 9 and 10, well, at least 9, I'm assuming 10 as well. That event got postponed until this week, and those people weren't there.
We won't pay it.
Okay.
We won't pay it. We won't accept the invoice. We won't pay it.
On number 9 and 10?
Yeah.
At least 9, because
You were there.
I was there. Now 10, I mean they're the same days, unless that. Oh, you know what? That's bond. So maybe they did do bond, but
Yeah.
they did not do casket.
Mr. President, Mr. Bass, I will check that tomorrow.
Okay, so which one is out?
9.
Okay, so why don't we have a motion to amend the first motion to eliminate number 9. So we have a motion to eliminate number 9, second to eliminate number 9. Pardon me? All right, yeah, Nick seconded. So we're going to vote on the amendment first. So call the roll on the amendment to remove number 9.
Mr. Bass?
I think they might have gone during the daytime celebration. Yeah. They were there. Even during the day? Yeah, I went during the day. Because they had during the day and during the night, so I would just be cautious about it.
How about this? We could,
Okay, vote the amendment down.
yeah,
Vote it down. If I would ask you to vote it out, vote it down.
Okay.
Okay, call the roll.
Mr. Bass?
No.
Mr. Bilson?
Okay, we amended the original motion, and there's a question, Maria's advising us, be careful not to do it, so we'll vote it out. We'll change the original, we'll amend it again, and we'll give them discretion to pay upon proper paperwork.
So we're going to do that with voting?
The amendment down.
No, the voting.
Vote no.
So my vote is no.
Thank you. Mr. Kinsemi?
No.
Mrs. Dunn? Mr. McLeod? Mr. Pareto?
No.
Mr. Velardo? Mr. Petrosi?
No. Okay, now I would ask that we just add to the original motion that all proper paperwork and the questions on the 1s and 9 and 10 be thoroughly rectified, and we give you the authority to pay or not to pay.
Thank you, and I will report to you tomorrow morning.
Okay, so that would be the amendment. Would someone make that motion for that amendment I just spoke? Mr. Velardo, Mr. Bassett on the motion, Mr. Velardo on the second. Call the roll on the amendment, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Bilson?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsemi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. McLeod? Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo? Mr. Petrosi?
Yes, thank you very much. Call the roll on the original motion, please.
Mr. Bass?
As amended.
Yes.
Mr. Bilson?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsemi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. McLeod? Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo? Mr. Petrosi?
Yes,
Easy.
thank you.
Welcome back.
411, January 25 Head Start reports and budget. Thank you, Rob. Earl, questions? Call the roll, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oh, thank you very much. We will move into new business. I'm going to take, let's see, what are we going to take together here? 601 to 604? Yeah, I think so. 601, gift from Totally Buffalo Cares. That's a new group, the new group, right, Mark?
Yeah, I was going to ask if I could comment after you get on the floor.
Well, we get on the floor. Okay, 601, gift from Totally Buffalo Cares. 602, 2024-25 statewide universal full-day pre-kindergarten. 603, ESA Title III, along with 604, ESEA Title III.
Second.
Move second.
Move second, Rob on the motion, Jim on the second. Mark, one of
Yeah, I just wanted to congratulate and really thank this group, Totally Buffalo Cares. This is about a month late, but we wanted to ascertain all that they did. And at Christmas time, at the holiday time, they provided over $25,000 worth of gifts and things for kids at 6 of our elementary schools. And they have become a wonderful partner. I am going to recommend to you later in the year, because they've promised to do this on an annual basis, that you consider Totally Buffalo Cares as one of your Golden Apple recipients in June, because to come up with $25,000 for our kids on a moment's notice and to give them the things that they needed and to give the whole school things was just a magnanimous contribution. So I would ask your support of this resolution along with the others and single out the great work of Totally Buffalo Cares.
That is the Friona sisters, correct?
It is.
Paula and...
And I don't...
Is it Mary?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mary.
Yeah.
I think it's...
Yeah.
Yes.
I think Mary was on TV.
Mary
She used
was
to be on
TV.
Channel 2, and then they started this foundation, and they got involved with our social workers and our counselors, and they just took over our schools at Christmas time, and along with the firefighters and other groups, and I'm not going to name them all, the things that the community has done for our kids is just incredible. They've been incredible. So Totally Buffalo Cares is new, and we're overwhelmed by their generosity.
It's they made Christmas very happy for many, many of our kids. We are totally grateful. Anything else? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Bilson? Mr. Kinsemi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. McLeod? Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo? And Mr. Petrosi.
Yes, thank you very much. 6:05, the annual fire safety reports. Rob on the motion. Jimmy on the second. Any questions?
Comment again.
Sure.
Thank you to the fire department as Mr. Smeal, maintenance director emeritus, soon to be, reported. It was our best year with fire reports. We had, I think, 4 or 5 schools that had not had one single infraction, and the other ones were. It's true, and this report will certify that the other buildings were fixable things within the day. So congratulations to Earl's team, and thanks to the fire department.
Okay, thank you. Call the roll, please. Yes, did you have to say something? No, I thought you were going to say something. Call the roll, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thanks, Judy. We'll take 6:06 and 6:07 together. They're election-related items. 6:06, voting machine custodians, and 6:07 is the statutory meeting dates. Times.
Second.
The motion was by Jim, and second by Tony. I'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Bilson? Mr. Kinsemi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. McLeod? Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo? And Mr. Petrosi.
Members of the board, Judy has her first meeting with our student election custodians next week. She's got a cadre of 17, and we're going to try and bump that up to close to 25. But good luck with your first meeting, Judy.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. That's great. 6:08 and 6:09 we will take together. 6:08 is to amend an agreement with Pride Healthcare Staffing, and 6:09 was with Erie One BOCES to furnish some computer services for students. Jimmy? Nick? Questions?
Make a comment here.
Of course.
Last 2 weeks ago, you saw what I thought was an outstanding presentation by Mr. Maynard, Mr. Graneri, and team. Your approval of this resolution will allow Mr. Graneri tomorrow to place the order for 1,700 Apple products for our pre-K to 2 students. And I think it was Mr. Velardo who asked an interesting question: why did we stop at 2? And Ray was right. Let's see how we do there, and we may be moving that up and coming to you next year with an expansion. But I think I would ask you to support this, because I think the kids are going to just really love these things, and I thought the presentation was excellent. Thank you for your consideration of support.
Can we make a deal and make it 1,710 and get one for the board members?
We'll get you a bigger one.
Okay, anybody else? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Bilson? Mr. Kinsemi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. McLeod? Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo? Mr. Petrosi.
Yes, thank you very much. 6:10 and 6:11 we'll take together. They are change orders. Change order number SCC-10 is 6.10, and 6.11 is change order SCC-11. Nick, second Jimmy. Questions? Say again?
Earl, how many tubes are they changing at Gaskill? 29.
29. 29 of 52, right?
Yeah.
Was, you know how many there were? Yeah, 70-something, 50-something. I was just curious. I think it's roughly 80 to 90. I was just curious.
That's a big boy. And the other resolution is to put a handicap ramp at CEC, which is really great too.
Questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Bilson? Mr. Kinsemi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. McLeod? Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo? Mr. Petrosi.
Yes, thank you very much. We'll take 6:12 to 6:16 together. 6.12 is payment number 11 to Scafari. 6.13, payment number 11 to Danforth, along with 6.14 6.14 is payment number 11 to Danforth again. 6.15, payment number 11 to Fry Electric. And 6.16, payment number 11 to StarTech.
Move.
Tony? Nick? Questions?
Can I make a comment, Mr. President?
You may, sir.
I want to thank the Niagara Falls City Council. I was joined by Maintenance Director Emeritus last evening and Board Member Extraordinaire Mrs. Dunn, and we presented to the City Council, and our easement for Gaskill was approved unanimously. I just wanted to thank the City Council for doing that. And to the question that we've all been asking through these meetings, the transformer installation at LaSalle Prep will begin April 7th with about 8 weeks worth of work. Upon completion of that, the transformer installation at Gaskill will begin with completion in June. We're going to keep pushing to get that done so that we can flip those switches when the warm season comes this school year. That's our hope. The good news is the end is in sight. And as I told the City Council last evening, your school district, our school district, will be one of the only school districts in the state that has every facility air conditioned. And the reason is because our kids deserve it. And I thank the board for supporting those capital projects.
Okay, any other questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Bilson?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsemi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. McLeod? Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo? Mr. Petrosi?
Yes, thank you very much. Artificial intelligence policy, number 7 is on the table. What's your pleasure? Do you want to take it off the table? Jimmy says yes. Motion to take it off the table. Second by Earl. Call the roll, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. Now, let's approve it or not approve it. Motion to approve. Jimmy, Nick, second. Questions? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bass?
Yes.
Mr. Bilson? Mr. Kinsemi? Mrs. Dunn? Mr. McLeod? Mr. Pareto?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo? Mr. Petrosi?
Yes, thank you very much. And now, information and reports. We will start with the public comment on non-agenda items. I have Mr. Barksdale first. 3 minutes, if you would, please. Name and address, and if you're representing anybody, please.
Happy New Year.
Oh, yeah. Happy New
Michael
Year.
Barksdale, Independence Avenue. I am representing myself, a parent, taxpayer, stakeholder, and Chief Operating Officer of Niagara Community Information Group. I think about that and how I'm impacted by what goes on in the school district, and it impacts me in so many different ways. Wow, that thought just hit me when you asked me that. But anyway, on to what I'm saying. We hear a lot about you have to be the change you want to see. Several times I've come before you and talked about having a paradigm shift. What the paradigm shift looks like is moving from, and I'll just say it, number 537 out of 550 in the state to the top 10 at least. How do we get there? Educational excellence. Educational excellence. What that is it refers to the highest standards of learning and teaching where both students and educators strive to achieve the best possible outcomes. It encompasses various aspects: academic achievement, high levels of student performance and mastery of subjects, quality of teaching, skilled, knowledgeable, and passionate teachers who inspire and support their students, curriculum, a well-rounded, challenging, and relevant curriculum that prepares students for future success. And I want to pause for a moment. I thought about the presentation back in November where I mentioned that we're still using reading recovery. Mr. Blaber mentioned it the last time we were here. I mentioned it. It is banned, meaning it's illegal in 19 states in the United States, and we're still using it. It's banned, and more states are moving away from it. We can't just throw phonics on top of reading recovery and say it's the science of reading, that we're making a change. They're saying that in the short term, it helps some kids. Long term, it's damaging kids. And we keep staying with this. We've got to change that if we're going to achieve educational excellence. Learning environment, safe, inclusive, and supportive environments that foster intellectual curiosity and personal growth. I will commend you. We are there. Very safe, inclusive, and supportive environments in this district. I commend you on that. Student engagement, active participation, and enthusiasm for learning, both inside and outside the classroom. That's a challenge, and we do need to have community involvement in doing that, and I'm working on that myself. Holistic development, focus on developing not just academic skills, but also social, emotional, and practical skills. Those resources are out there. We just got to communicate to the families and help them to understand what they are and how to access them. They can't take advantage of these things that you made available if they don't know. And we still got to figure out a way to do that. And that comes with what I've seen effective is one-on-one conversations to break that down. If flyer doesn't work, robocall, we've got to be a lot more aggressive in helping the families understand what's available. And finally, ultimately, educational excellence is about creating opportunities for every student to reach their full potential, Again, I'll reiterate, and I'll tell you every time I come before you, we're here to help. We're here to assist. We have resources and connections, and there's people outside of Niagara Falls that want to help us achieve educational excellence. One of the things that draws that attention is what they see, not only in SEG, but people in the community trying. People are willing to help, and no one said anything about charging us for it. I don't know if that's the problem because there's no price tag, thinking there's no value, but if somebody's willing to support you, receive it, and let's move forward. All right, I thank you.
Mr. Lawrence Flavor Jr.
Lawrence Flavor Jr., 38th Street, and I'm here to represent my wife, my kids, and the community. One of my colleagues in real estate sent me something the other day showing that our graduation rate was last year at 80%, putting us in the bottom of the state for fellow school districts. And it occurred to me that the math is not mathing, because if only 20% of our kids are reading in third grade, how are we graduating 80%? I mean, by even 8th grade, I believe, according to stats, only 65% of our kids are failing reading at an appropriate grade level. So this becomes a problem because every time we have discussions on our struggles here, it's real easy for you guys to always go back to the parenting and the poverty in this city. That's the cop-out that I hear every time, is the parenting and the poverty in this city, and that's what makes change and progress so hard. But here's the problem. These kids that you're giving diplomas, like my mechanic's son, they can get out of here and they can get a job, right? They can get a job, whether it's construction, being a mechanic at any garage or Arby's or even Walmart. They can start there and work their way up. But they can't work their way up, because if they can't read and do math, they can't work their way up, because the minute you try to go from a guy on the floor to a foreman, you have to start being able to read and do math and do timesheets and reports. The minute you try to do that in an Arby's, you can't. You can't even move from a district manager at a Quickfill or a Sunoco without this ability. So you're creating this poverty that's trapping them and then complaining about it. And then if they can't read to a special level, they can't even read What to Expect When You're Expecting, which is the seminal book when you become a parent. So you're trapping them in not being able to be knowledgeable parents, not being able to get a good enough job to provide for these kids. And then you're saying, well, it's your fault that our reading scores are so low and we don't when we can't move progress, when you're literally using a program that, as Mr. Barksdale pointed out, has been proven to be defective and harmful. I'm not asking you guys to become educators or to get masters in education. I'm asking you guys to treat this like you would this HVAC and air conditioning thing that you guys all love to talk about, like if it was faulty, okay? What is the goal? Are we progressing to this goal? What are the landmarks that show that we're progressing to these goals? Benchmarks. What are our countermeasures if we're not getting to this goal? And at what point is someone willing to put their head in the hangman's noose for continual failure? Because for 10 years running, we've been 10th out of 10th in the county. The math's not mathing. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. I want to start with two of our nurses. I just wanted to not embarrass them, but I wanted to thank Nurse Andrea Gregg and Nurse Tony Moranti. This week we had two students in distress needing the Heimlich maneuver. Our nurses were Johnny on the spot and were able to perform the Heimlich maneuver and save children. And I intend to do something a little more formal, but I want you to know the skilled, trained way our nurses are able to save and protect and help kids. I think they did just a wonderful job. Last week when we talked about the Black Achievers, I failed to mention, I did mention Mrs. Brundage, I failed to mention Mr. Bass. Congratulations, Mr. Earl Bass, and congratulations to staff accountant, Marcasia McCreary. I am really proud that they are with us on the team. Mark down on your calendars, and I'll tell you a little bit more about this at the next meeting. We're having our first Pi Day, P-I. It is a STEM day. It's obviously March 14th, 3/14, and we're having about 100 students from across the district come to the high school. 100 STEM students, P-Tech students get together, and they are going to build catapults. The Culinary Institute at SUNY Niagara is offering us different flavored homemade pies, and we're going to have pizza pies together in a vertically aligned team from elementary to high school celebration of Pi Day on March 14th. More to come. But kudos to Teacher Kate Johnson, Madison Del Porto, Bhavna Chowdhury, and others, Mr. Corella for his leadership. First ever Pi Day in the district. Going to be a lot of fun. Best of luck to our robotics team. We have 10 teams going on March 5th to Syracuse to compete to go to the Nationals. 3 from Niagara Falls High School, 5 from LaSalle Prep, and 2 from Gaskill. I'm super proud of Gaskill's first 2 teams to go forward. I want to indicate that we've had a great winter sports season. We had 99 scholar athletes. These scholar athletes kept an average of 90% or better, and they played a varsity sport. That's a lot of scholar athletes. I want to congratulate and wish the best of luck to our athletes, male and female, who are competing for state championships this weekend, especially in swimming, wrestling, indoor track. Our girls and boys basketball team is still going. And at the same time, I want to talk a little bit about our boys basketball team, who suffered a tragic parental loss, as you well know. I was able to attend, and Ms. Dunn was there, I was able to attend the beautiful funeral mass for our mom, who passed. The church was packed. The most touching moment for me during that mass was when our student spoke on behalf of his mom, followed by when our basketball team got up and moved together, dressed appropriately, spoke and sat in the front row, providing comfort to our student. It was moving, it was touching, and I want to congratulate Coach Carlos Bradbury and thank him, because whether they win another game or not, it will not matter. He is helping to mold 12 men in the way I'll never forget that moment, the way those 12 men move forward to support their classmate. That is what we're about, and that's what I was just so proud to see. And I was touched, truly touched, by their empathy and just the professionalism of which these high school students surrounded their classmates. So, Coach, congratulations and great job. We are making progress in our schools. The state released some reports today. Our schools are making progress, and all of our schools are making progress. We do have schools that, as you know, and we've talked about this quite a bit, when we say we make progress, the state, as they should, breaks them down, progress down, not only as a whole school, but into different cells. A cell meaning economically disadvantaged, mixed race, black, all of those different categories, and I don't even remember how many there were. In our schools that aren't making, in our schools are making progress, but in some of the schools there is a specific category or not that isn't. We are here to move all students forward. And we will be receiving some financial support for those schools. We do have schools in that category, but overall, our schools are moving forward. We do have what they call targeted subgroup schools. We have some work to do there, and we will get it done. I want to conclude by telling you that we continue to see really good, safe schools in a proper learning environment everywhere. Parents, it's scary, but we're talking about 25, 26, even though we still have a lot to go in this year. Our universal pre-K 3 and 4 application and Head Start application comes out on Monday. Mrs. Buckman is now taking that charge. It comes out Monday, so hopefully, let's see, this is 2025. Hopefully, we get a lot of applicants for the class of 2045. 2045, just 1 or 2 years before I retire. We'll be getting kids coming into school. So please, parents, pick up those applications. We want to keep our pre-K classes full because we know and we think it makes a huge difference. The budget, we presented this earlier in the evening. We're moving in a good, steady pace. And finally, I will tell you that we'll bring this back to you very soon. I believe they discussed it last evening at the parent committee. Our Say Yes program is starting to pick up momentum in terms of money for the endowment. We have a long way to go, but we've had some very good, productive conversations, and some money is starting to flow in. Very soon we'll give you a status report, but Say Yes Niagara Falls is coming September 1st, and we're really excited about it. Thank you, board members, for your support of all the resolutions this evening, and I will follow up on the one that Mr. Bass pointed out, because I don't know for sure, but I will follow up and report back to you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Oh, we do need to continue. We did not come out of executive session. We just paused it, okay.
Okay, I'll go around the table. I'll start with Mr. Villar. Jimmy? Roll.
I just wanted to say that I attended Black History program at Hyde Park last week and Gaskill this week. Both programs were really good programs, and not just regurgitating information at students. There was student involvement. It was engaging and entertaining at the same time. So kudos to those staff and the students who put those programs together.
Thank you, Earl. Brad? Claire? Tony?
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to read a list of names that are tragically no longer with us. This list is quite long. If I mispronounce, please correct me, folks, as we go along. Dorothy Andrachak, mother of Michelle Brocious. Robert Brewer, uncle of Bertha Travers. Dorothy Chapone, retiree, mother of Carol Cafris, grandmother of Alyssa DeRosa, and longtime personal friend of yours truly. Nia Crockett, mother of Niagara Falls High School senior Nashawn Farrell. Regina Jones, retiree, sister of Tanya Adamson and aunt of Shanika Jones. Lori Jane Lewick, former substitute teacher. Yeah. Nicholas Marcellus, retired administrator. Yeah, Nick. Joseph Pinzatti, father of Christine Lodovico. Jimmy, you got to get your cars. Joe stores many of the old-time cars in Niagara Falls. Judith Potasic, retired English teacher. Mildred Robertson, retired teacher. Ellen Scrivuli, mother of Teresa Brockman. Zelda Smith, sister of retired Principal Sheila Smith. We will be adjourning in the name of all those people. After our executive session, I would ask for a motion to resume the executive session we started. Second. Jimmy, second. Tony. Judy, call the roll, please. All in favor? Aye. And we will come out of executive session and we will not be taking any action.